Uzimu silni, the glorious of the mighty rank. Well, today we'll talk about the extremely difficult times that Ukraine is marching straight into, and you can call it whatever you want, catastrophe, apocalypse. It's just terrible, and right away there are several directions here. Even the bird of happiness of tomorrow, Juan, is shocked by the overwhelming glory, and today he and I will tell you what, for example, the new Minister of Defense said. And here's what he said. He immediately started trying to win people over, like possible interlocutors for the peace process from the Russian Federation, as well as representatives of Donbas, Luhansk region, and so LPR basically, and DPR and Crimea, yeah, anything at all. Look what we have here. This very Dropati stated that it's necessary to work with the population of Donetsk and Luhansk regions on issues of statehood and fostering national identity, something Ukrainian as well. A Ukrainian, not a leftover from the Soviet Union. Well, I think that's just a brilliant start for such a great and talented person. He immediately won everyone over with his very first phrases. Everyone turned, like in the fairy tale, with their backs to the forest and facing Dropati, or maybe the other way around, and apparently expressed their agreement. Honestly, I don't understand what motivates these people to make such statements, but that's not all. In Donetsk and Luhansk regions, people are always lacking something, he said. There is discontent and envy. A significant part of this group does not want to work. They want freebies. For the most part, they don't care which country they live in or how things will be with Ivanov. To prevent this, it's necessary to work with the population on issues of statehood and fostering national identity, that you are Ukrainian, not a leftover from the Soviet Union. And this isn't being said by some, freak like Korchinsky or Tolstolobik or someone else. This is being said by a top military official in the Ukrainian government, so that's the beginning. Quite promising, really. Well, you can only be shocked by this. Juan and I are both just shocked because, I honestly don't even know what to say, even with my extensive vocabulary. Well, actually, my vocabulary is small but still hopeful, and I do have the ability to be sarcastic, but here it's just, it's right in your face, and that's it. And you just sit there stuck in this twilight state. So basically, calling several million people freeloaders right away and saying that they need to be worked with so they realize their identity. I'm curious, how exactly are you supposed to work with them? It's like with Crimea, they kept cutting him off from electricity, water, supplies, including the economy. And then they ask, why don't you love Ukraine? Oh, how bad you are. Well, and that's not all. He also talked about the Russian Federation, apparently. Zelensky keeps saying that he wants to make compromises. But then suddenly Dropata comes out and makes a statement.
Well, of course, we see that our neighbor is a nation with leadership that has no right to anything civilized at all. It hasn't changed for thousands of years, neither in mentality nor in imperial behavior and ambitions.
Subtitles, that's how things are. I mean, I don't know what's happening with peace, but with such attitudes, you clearly won't get very far. With peace negotiations, and here you can talk a lot about the twists and complexities of the negotiation process, but if you immediately declare that the neighboring nation has no right to exist and your so-called fellow citizens are freeloaders, that makes you think all sorts of things. Then, that's the first, I would say, catastrophe, but then another one comes up. The head of this very Dropatov, Zelensky, comes to the forefront, and Zelensky says the following. He left. By the way, he flew to the USA. That's where the funeral for that very Senator Graham is, who said he would profit from Ukraine and profit from the deaths of Ukrainian citizens. But Zelensky flew to the funeral of this great man, and he will be there for a whole week. Naturally, people immediately started talking about how, since he'd left, there would immediately be consequences. But the thing is, Zelensky has already, of course, said from abroad, be careful there, and the shelling, the terrible shelling. That's already a regular thing, but he said something else. He stated that he's dissatisfied with the plans to prepare the regions for winter, and it's interesting, how the head of state in the middle of summer declares that he's dissatisfied with all of this. So who's responsible for the regions not being ready? Where's the money? Winter really is coming. Time is running very fast. So where's the money? What's going on anyway? And he declares that logistics, grain, agriculture, energy, all of these are very important things. The analysis is simply excellent. This is already the level of Admiral Obvious, not even Captain Obvious. And he says the resilience plans too, which frankly I'm completely dissatisfied with. What kind of sustainability plans? What's going on? I saw the percentage of completed work. We need to get down to business very quickly, said Zelensky at a press conference with the Prime Minister of Ireland in Kyiv on Thursday. He was excellent too. Well, the foreign guest, that's extremely important, especially in the face of this very winter catastrophe. And again, a lot of questions arise here. Well, if nothing was done last year, nothing is being done now. There was that Mustafa Nayem who was responsible for protecting the energy infrastructure. There's no Nayem, there's no money, no Nayem. The infrastructure is also being hit and will continue to be hit in the winter. Moreover, Zelensky is echoed by the so-called Reserve General Krivonos. I already showed him in my previous video, I think. Now he says that Kyiv will drown. Excuse me, these are not my words, these are his words. Now let's watch the video, in excrement and their own at that. This figure is also remarkable, and here is what he says.
What will happen when there is no light and heat in the winter?
What will work? We'll invite Tina Karol. She'll be there singing with her voice. Well, when there isn't... Well, anyway, I can't do it like that.
Our authorities are asking what will happen to our schools, our hospitals, our stores, our pharmacies. What will happen to our sewage system? If there's no electricity, there will be no water. And if there's no water, all the crap will freeze and we'll drown in it within 4 or 5 days. I mean Kyiv, in our own crap. Let's call things by their real names.
Things. And now various figures are coming out and saying that things will be bad, but none of them are saying what needs to be done to make things better. You might ask me, for example, as well, why do you talk about different problems but you don't talk about what could be done? I've already said more than once that first and foremost, corruption needs to be completely eradicated at its root. And then all this nepotism, corruption and everything else, and only after that should we start working on the economy and all those things. As long as one hand washes the other, and the further it goes, the more soap they use, nothing good will come of it. There's no third option here. This fish has rotted from head to tail already. There's corruption there and nepotism too. And family connections among close relatives when it comes to economic ties. One person sits in the Ministry of Internal Affairs, another in some economic agency, and a third runs some party or the party itself. As a result, it turns into a very tight-knit circle that can't be overcome. That's when the mafia, for example, merges with the military, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and a few other branches of government and agencies. There's nothing you can do about it anymore. So here, well, at least I'm just a blogger, and I can only offer something like this. The president says everything is bad and nothing is being prepared, so preparations need to be made. Thanks a lot. If you're hungry, eat cake. If you don't have a house, just buy a house. All problems are solved very quickly. Well, and here he popped up, what's his name, that singer from Machina Vremeni. I'm 300 years old, I crawled out of the darkness. And then suddenly Kuleba burst into our broadcast. The great fighter with entrenching shovels, or rather with their handles. He claimed that the front line was ready to fight without weapons, just with shovel handles. In the end, he interviews his wife, or his wife interviews him, and so on. Well, anyway, they interview each other, but for some reason, this Kuleba doesn't look like a person in distress who is expecting a bad winter. And his wife also doesn't look like someone who's going through all sorts of twists of fate and facing difficulties. On the contrary, everything seems great for them. I'm sure it's a villa somewhere near Kyiv with an artesian well, a boiler that works under any conditions and isn't cheap, and solar panels, with heating and hot water on the roof as well, and they interview each other under the air conditioner. Let's listen together, along with the bird of happiness, to what's happening there.
Total war is already beginning, and that's a big problem. And both we and they will have enough missiles.
And that's what he's saying about Russia.
Drones to methodically destroy each other's economies. And very difficult times lie ahead in terms of everyday life. Because we are at war. But basically, you could come, well, except for the beginning of 2022, you could come to the supermarket and basically everything was there. And the prices were more or less reasonable. And now
By the way, I haven't seen in any of these interview clips that Pavlaitska's wife ever said anything. Either she's just there for show, or I don't even know. Maybe she gives him moral support so he isn't afraid to talk in front of the camera. Well, in general, something interesting is happening.
There will be interruptions because everything will be knocked out and shut down, everything will be shutting down. Honestly, I'll tell you, I do believe that everything will be fine, but right now, the stage we're entering is very difficult.
He still believes everything will be fine. At any moment, Kuleba can go abroad and live perfectly well on the money he earned through honest work, of course, somewhere in a villa, again in Spain, in Italy, or even in Iceland. He'll be fine no matter what. But the people who were, so to speak, under his careful supervision, both in Ukraine and abroad, those who were forbidden to get a passport for travel abroad if they are subject to military service and so on, those people will not be fine. And again, they're all like, look what great analysts we are. It's Krivonos, it's Kuleba and Zelensky. We're analyzing everything will be bad in the winter. Even the dumbest hedgehog in the darkest forest understands that everything will be bad. You should at least make it acceptable, not necessarily great, but at least acceptable. Everyone in Ukraine already understands that things will be bad if the energy infrastructure is destroyed, if the RML power plants are taken out, if warehouses with products and food are being hit now. And industrial goods and mass consumer products, nothing good will come of it. But they continue to heavily attack the Wild Breeze warehouses. Apparently this is considered a victory, and by the way, here's another answer to that character Dropotov's question about working with the population of the DPR and LPR. Another person has spoken out. You won't believe what needs to be done. Not to work on the economy, not even to give them weapons. You need to grow a mustache like his. That's what the character says next. Let's be Ukrainians not only in our hearts, not only in our minds, but also in our culture and appearance. Can you imagine the intensity of emotions? This character looks stern, putting on a serious face. Well, and then he started using the rough street language, the harsh foreign streets. Honestly, I don't even know what parts of his brain made him come up with that on the phrase from his own brain ganglion, but he did come up with it. Basically foreign, damn, how do I put it? Well, basically alien foreign, Moscow-style Asian beards. We won't be cultivating those. Let's cultivate Cossack mustaches. Well, apparently the way he cultivates them, that's instantly a hero at the front, cutting paths through enemy bodies. And we will have a majestic, great Ukraine from Preshov to Kolm, Brest, Mazir, Starodub, and even Voronezh, and the Volga, and the Caspian, and the Caucasus, and even Sakhalin. I always joke that the Ukrainian armed forces are standing there at the gates of Sakhalin or at Iturup, because those are the farthest points in Eurasia that I know. Well, that's right there, just to the east. But this character apparently picked it up. I don't know, maybe he watches my videos and learned about the existence of Sakhalin. So, Sakhalin residents, here are the kind of mustaches. Look, be careful. As soon as you see someone with mustaches like this, be suspicious. Maybe it's this character. His name is Vasil Kuruzhak. And that's it. This isn't a disclosure of personal information. It's his own post. Well, Kuruzhak even put this hashtag so people could find his musings. Well, yeah, by the way, about 6 people voted for the mustache guy in the elections anyway, all the best. You shouldn't expect anything in the near future. Then, about defenders like this Kuruzhak. Well, he has a mustache, which is, excuse my language, a ticket into girls' panties. That's an old school joke. And here's another example. They approach people on the street and ask how they're doing and what's happening with the military and other things. And who will you vote for? There's this girl with some strange scarf. It's plus 30 degrees and something. Well, let's listen. We'll choose for...
a horse. My choice will remain...
with,
Zelensky, since he entered in 2019. Where did he enter? Thank you.
Where did he enter? What did he enter? To drown, as that one said crookedly, General Krivonos. Or where? Where did the girl enter?
So, accordingly, we will try to get involved after him.
Because it's Tomushcho, not Potomushcho. Where do you find them? Take Ukrainians who know the Ukrainian language, for God's sake.
All of this has to end. When we elected him, it all started, so it should all stay with him. Thank you.
Very strange, a very strange speech, but there's another girl. We need people.
Because there are very few people at war.
She's telling how you feel about the draft offices, about these manhunters, and are there any advantages to bisification?
They die every day, unfortunately. Draft offices are needed so we can protect the people, so that we...
Says the girl on the street, waving her manicured hands, says that we should protect the people. Draft officers are needed so we can protect the people, says the girl who isn't planning to join the army. And there will never be any forced roundups, well, at least until I think the new year. There won't be any kind of female draft. And the girl says that we're protecting all this. We will protect until victory.
Більш ми до перемоги наближили.
Yes, she has brought us closer to victory. Still, her Ukrainian is like that of a Jerboa somewhere in the African desert. Honestly, I'm surprised. If there are these language enforcers and language patrols everywhere and everyone is running around shouting that we should learn Ukrainian, then what's going on and why do people speak Ukrainian so poorly? Well, then just speak English there, or, I don't know, Spanish if Russian is banned. But this is terrible. It's just mocking the language, especially that first girl who was trying to say something there. Yeah, it's crazy, and you can also see how they're busifying citizens now and what it leads to. For one person now, just like in Vice City or San Andreas or any other GTA game, I mean the console or computer game, they're already getting 5 stars.
There he is, again, look, he's cornering him.
He's cornering him. I counted 5 patrols, five police cars.
What are you doing, pretty boy?
For one miserable scooter. And they want to bundle this young guy into a van for mobilization. Look.
Look at what? Look. Holy shit, there he is.
Can you imagine how much gas, resources, manpower, and hours are spent on this one person? And how effective is recruiting new people into the army? I mean, new recruits. Well, you can see all of that in this video. But, you know, as winter approaches, we don't have much hope for peace because there were some hopes for a meeting between U.S. Secretary of State Rubio and Lavrov. But those hopes melted away like a sandcastle during a storm. And Rubio stated that new ideas are needed for peace in Ukraine. That is the old idea after Anchorage. The spirit of Anchorage is already gone. It's not quite there anymore. It's more of a whiff now, not a spirit. Well, but there are no new ideas, and honestly, I don't understand what they could be, except for stopping the fighting, but there was at least a somewhat clear path forward. I'm not saying it's good, maybe it's bad for someone, but at least it was fair, it was planned. That is, the fighting stops along the current front line. Ukraine gives up the remaining 20% of Donbas, and we seem to get peace without NATO forces in Ukraine, without all those European representatives. A big Lozitsky cycle. Well, and then something more or less sensible starts. What ideas could there be now? What can be done without such a proposal? To have peace. Well, I just don't understand at all, and Juan doesn't understand either. He's just in shock. His sombrero, you see, just shriveled up from not understanding this process. And his eyes, on the other hand, bulged out. So, make your suggestions in the comments, if you have any reasonable ideas. Well, except for the idea that all of Ukraine comes under Russia's patronage, or on the contrary, that Ukraine captures Russia all the way to Sakhalin. On both sides, hooray, patriots, they're just acting splendidly. Acting. Same thing, it's a madhouse. So, write your thoughts. It would be interesting to read what you think about this. What new ideas could there even be? What are they about? Well, Rubio says the following. The war in Ukraine can only be ended with new ideas. All the proposals that have been on the table so far have not satisfied Kyiv. So it turns out that the proposals should be the ones that satisfy Kyiv, and Kyiv is satisfied with a proposal, well, like creating a Cossack university, just like that character suggested. And to storm Sakhalin, to take it by assault, there's no other way, preferably by hand, without tanks, to prove that Cossack bravery. According to Rubio, the previous proposals were unacceptable for Ukraine at that time, and now they would satisfy Kyiv even less. If peace comes, it will be thanks to some new idea, a new concept. We are ready to offer some of them in an appropriate format if the opportunity arises and the right conditions are in place. He called his talk with Lavrov good and frank. Rubio admitted that the war is costly, for both sides. Russians are being hit deep inside their own territory, and Ukraine is facing winter and the need to defend its skies. Well, honestly, it sounds like an epitaph for this whole peace process. Because if Rubio has no ideas, and if Russia and Ukraine have ideas that clearly won't satisfy each other, then that's a problem. Well, all that's left is to wait for winter and drown, whether it's in virtual or real terms, however it turns out. Goodbye, everyone.
And they enlisted 22,000 personnel on contract. Of them, every 7th person is someone who has a criminal record, is under investigation, or, well, let's say has some issues with the law. In other words, they take everyone they see. They push everyone forward but suffer repeated losses.